has had an awesome week on this week as we get ready to get started with the seat at the table. We're excited and we're blessing the Lord for allowing us to be able to have a conversation with you again on tonight. So I pray that everyone that this video finds you in good health on tonight.
Yeah, we as we go back, we started off with our seat at the table. We started off talking about who you still in love with, your past lover or your present lover. Are you still in love with your ex or your present? Are you still in love with your present husband, your present wife, your past wife, or your present wife? So the question is, who you in love with? And the problem becomes is the fact that many times in our relationships, we have so many issues and problems that are going on, and we're fighting so many different things. And we find ourselves in disputes, arguments, debates. We find ourselves dealing with so many issues. Hey, Sister Lynn, welcome to all of you tonight as Evangelist. Just welcome you guys tonight because we don't seem to want to fall back in love, or we feel that it's enough. Evangelist and I talk often about it, and oftentimes there have been debates even with she and I on whether or not we should continue. Previous relationships I was in, the previous marriage I was in, my ex-wife told me that she didn't feel that it was necessary for us to continue to fall in love. We didn't need to get to know each other anymore. It was enough where we were. We didn't have to continue to be in the courtship. The problem is, it's the same thing with our relationship when it relates even in the church. We feel that once we have now accepted Christ, now that we are in the church, now that we go to church, some of us go to Bible class on a regular basis, a consistent basis. We're constant. We're consistent with it week after week. Even if we get a job, we do our best to find a job where we're able to get off from work and still go to Bible class, whether we make it there when it starts or we get there in the in between, or we catch it right before Bible class is over, because that's where we get our learning. That's where we get the knowledge. That's where we get our instructions. That's where we get our training. That's where we get the information that actually helps us to live. In the beginning of our relationships, that's where we get to know one another. We learn each other. We understand each other. We find out who the person is, who the person, or rather what the person is all about. And when we find ourselves in various relationships, even when it comes down to friendships, we outgrow each other. We're not on the same level. We don't do the same things. That's just like on the playground. When you go from the first grade to the second grade, or go from first grade to fourth grade, or from fourth grade, now you're in sixth grade, you are in middle school. Kids don't play the same games anymore. Some kids don't want to play hopscotch anymore. Some kids don't want to play jacks anymore. Some kids don't want to jump rope no more. Some kids don't want to shoot marbles anymore. So you're not on the same mental level as everybody else. Some kids don't want to play with dolls anymore. Nobody want to play hide and seek anymore. Nobody want to sit on a swing and swing anymore. Nobody want to play on the seesaws anymore. So you grow from one stage to the next stage, and you'll find that some of your friends don't do the same things you do. They don't have the same kind of conversations that you have. They don't talk about the same things. And then you'll find that even as adults, you'll find yourself gravitating to some of the same grown folk talking the same childish things that you talked about when you was on the playground with your kids on the playground. They still want to play dress up. They still want to play make up each other's face. They still want to see what kind of outfits that they can wear. You got some grown folk that I found now that are 60 years old. Some grown 60-year-old women want to wear 20-year-old girl clothes. They want to go into clubs and do the same things as 20-year-olds do. Now, listen, don't misinterpret what I just said. And what I love about it is that you still find yourself what my grandmother would call frisky. You still have some vitality is basically what it is. You still have some youthfulness about it. But you still got to remember, you ain't 20 years old no more, baby. You can't do all of what 20-year-olds can do. Now, if your body has the limberness, because your muscles are stretched out and you can still do the splits and all of that other stuff. You still got to remember that you are the age of the mother, the grandmothers, or some great grandmothers and what have you. So now you're the person that are supposed to be setting some examples, not doing the things they're doing, not chasing down the guys their age, or doing their guys and these things of that nature. I understand that you want somebody that can compete, that can keep up, that has the same interests that you have. But the thing about being in love with somebody that you used to be in love with, while you saying that you are in love with the person that you're with now, it causes a mental, emotional, psychological, a physical, a conscious, a subconscious block in your present relationship. It stops you from really being able to proceed going forward. It keeps you from being able to really get to know the person you're with, because you're still looking at the what ifs. You're still looking at, well, I remember when. You don't want to look at the fact that that's just a memory now. You're still looking at maybe we could have. You're still looking at, well, if I had the opportunity, if I would have done this different, if I would have said this different, maybe if we just had an opportunity to sit down and talk and discuss, and what I'm doing in this relationship, if I would have did it in that one, and if I would have did this with them, if I would have held them like this, if I would have kissed them like that, if I would have loved them like that, because this is what they really wanted me to be doing, and I'm doing this with you, but this is what my ex-husband wanted, my ex-boyfriend wanted, and I'm giving all of this to you, and if I'd have just been doing this with them, then maybe we'd have still been together. Well, what were some of the other things that were going on that caused you guys to have the issues that you had, that you are no longer together? Because it was more than just those things. What were the conversations that you were having? What caused you to begin to get to that place? What was the breakdown? What caused the breakdown? So who are you still in love with that now have brought you to the place that you have now become a hermit in the relationship? You don't want to be bothered. You don't want to be at a place to where you can now sit down and enjoy a bowl of popcorn, a bag of popcorn, enjoy your favorite movie, have movie night, go out on a date. You don't want to fix yourself up. You don't want to comb your hair. You don't want to put on makeup. The only time you dress up and you want to look good and you want to be all spiffy is when you go out by yourself. You feel that everything they do is starting to irritate you. Their voice irritates you. The body washes that they wear, the colognes that they wear, all of these things are causing you problems. So who are you still in love with? What are you thinking about? Just their smell, you can't even deal with the fact that they pass gas now. Everything that they do now is bothering you. You don't like the way they cook. You don't like the taste of their food. You're staying out all night long. So now you have this redundancy about everything that now creates an argument. You're looking for reasons to leave the house. You're looking for problems that now cause things to become agitating, irritating. Everything you look at, you're buying clothes that now resemble. You're pulling out clothes. You're pulling out little things. You got little pet peeves that are now, creating issues. So what's causing you to now walk down memory lane that's causing your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, your fiance now to feel on edge? You don't want to answer phone calls. You don't want to answer text messages. Your text messages now are short. Your answers are short to whatever they're saying. You're sitting down at dinner. You're no longer hugged up where once you were all lovey-dovey and you was all close together and there was always smiles and you were rubbing on each other. You couldn't help but play in each other's face and different things of that nature. Now you sit right next to each other and you're like a mile apart. So who are you still in love with? What's causing you to feel that way? What brought you to that? Okay, you had an argument. You had a dispute. You didn't like what he said or how he said it. Evangelist and I, my wife and I, have been at that place at the beginning of our relationship. It got to the place that one day she found out that I can get very angry. I can get very upset. There's sometimes that some things that I don't like. And she found out that my voice is stronger than what it really is. And it really bothered her. And it put her at a place that it really agitated her, really upset her. But at the same time, there were some things that she still felt that was okay, that was all right for her to do. And it put a stickler with us because we grew together. But then who are you listening at? What voices are you hearing? Why am I going there? Why am I saying that? Because sometimes these things put us at places, just as God told Solomon, don't fall in love. Don't get with the women in the land where you are, because they'll pull you away from your God. You have now found that it's all right to be best friends with other people better than to be best friends with the person that you say that you have now begun to love. You have created a love with. You have begun to found that you were beginning to become emotionally drawn to, emotionally attached to. You began to become very fond of, and this person had now begun to get in your heart. They was always on your mind. You couldn't stop thinking about them. Seemed like every time you look up, you woke up in the middle of the night. Everywhere you was at, they was always on your mind. You had to text them. You just had to hear their voice. And seemed like everybody that passed by that was a male or female, you was a male, and seemed like every woman passed by, their perfume, their hair, they looked like her, they walked like her. You thought that was her, or you thought that was him because they were shaped like him, they were built like him, they walked like him. You thought it was his voice, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, I thought you was so and so and such, until you got a chance to be with them. And then when you did cross those lines and you did allow yourself to cross that path, and now you just felt just all melted, and you was just willy-nilly and what have you. Now all of a sudden, Billy Bob, Fufu, Willie Tutu, then all of a sudden came back in the picture and told you, well, you know, girl, look, I just wanted you to know I'm just so sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I said some things. I know I did some things. And I know you found out that I was messing around on you. And I don't know what came over me. I don't know what possessed me to do that. And I know you was in love with me. And I know how you really felt. And I didn't really mean to do that. Or, you know, you had one of them people that always seem to put their hands on you or call you different things or say things that really mentally or verbally put you at a place, and you just was so caught up. Well, you know, I understand, and it really hurt, and I'm glad you decided to come back, and you tried to play it off because you were so in love. You know, I got somebody in my life right now, and I'm in love with them, and they knew just what to say because they were just slick about what it was, because they knew you were not over them. They knew what it was and what it took because of what they always did with you, what they did and how they did and what they said and how they said it, the manner in which they said it in. And they knew how to just grab you, touch you, and how to get close to you. And it wasn't nothing sensual. It wasn't nothing sexual. It wasn't nothing perverted. They just knew the manner in which to get you at a place to where you would just say, well, I understand. It's okay. Or you was as a man and you're like, well, you know, look, girl, it's okay. Let's just be friends. We've always been friends and we'll always be friends. And they knew right then when they got you to best be at a place to where you were like, well, but they got you to say, well, or okay, don't worry about it. They knew when your voice shifted and changed, they got you. And see, that's where you allowed yourself to let the barriers break down. You didn't guard your mind, you didn't guard your thoughts, and you didn't guard your lips. And these are the things that the word teaches us. So when God told Solomon, be careful of the women in the land that he was in, because they would pull him away from his God, and they would cause him to now falter. When you've fallen in love with somebody else, did you really allow yourself to go through that colonic, that opportunity to flush out all of those feelings that would put you at a place that would infect you, corrode you, corrupt you? that would be able to come back up and leave that viral infection in you, that would find a place to attach itself to you, that would find a place that would lodge itself in your brain, that would not allow you to let the thoughts leave, but be there forever. And when you thought you had fallen in love with somebody else, you would find yourself in a depressed state when that person wasn't around. And even when you was with that person, or when you found yourself feeling so overwhelmed in love, the love that you thought you had lost would overwhelm the love you had, because now the imaginations of all of that love that you thought you had gotten rid of had now overshadowed it. Because you couldn't overshadow the feelings that you thought you had gotten rid of. Even in the midst of you now loving your man, loving your woman, now you've allowed this demonic possession to overtake you, and you're not looking at your person that you're with, you seeing somebody else. And you really all into what you're doing. And they swear that you loving them real good. They swear that everything is all good, but in your heart, you feel bad. And they're wondering why the next few days you don't want to be bothered. You're solemn. You all sitting in a chair with your legs folded up. You feel, and you crying and everything, and they're wondering why you got tears rolling down your eyes, but you can't tell them that you really don't know how to say that you really didn't see them. You really wasn't with them. And then some of y'all are so good that you'll do it for years and years and years, until finally you find yourself in your sleep doing things that you shouldn't do, crying out in your sleep. So who are you really in love with? You'll find yourself going to another ministry and you're worshiping and you're praising God, and you being called a pastor by the wrong name. You talking to the pastor, and the pastor having a whole conversation with you, and you done call the pastor, Pastor Willie, and Pastor Willie, is not the pastor name. The pastor name Pastor Bob. And he looking at you like, I've been your pastor for the last 10 years, and you ain't been at Pastor Willie Church for the last 20 years, and you've been here for the last 10 years, and you call him what the what? And you don't even know who you've been with. So who are you really in love with? What are you loving? Do you know why you fell in love with the person that you're in love with now? Did you get into the relationship you in? And y'all remember these words? You just got into this relationship because it was a rebound?
Yep.
Did you just get into this relationship because you wanted to get back at somebody else? You wanted to show them that you was worth something? That somebody wanted you? That somebody would love you, that somebody would even really wanted to be bothered with you. And you just been in this thing because you wanted to prove something to yourself and to the person that you were no longer with, or that had left you for somebody else. And a lot of times, ladies, this is what most of you do. I grew up in a house with 5 sisters. I was raised by a whole bunch of women. And I watched it happen many times, and they were with somebody that they really didn't want. But they had to learn, and they had to pretend that they was in love with this man, while this man was in love with them, deep in love with them. And they're hurting this man while they still in love with this other man, chasing this other man down. And the bad part was, while this man was genuinely in love with them, while this man was giving them everything, while this man was giving them his whole heart, his soul, his mind, giving them everything, giving them the world, the things that they desired, the things that they wanted, the things that they say they were lacking, they were still chasing down somebody that didn't care whether they lived or died. But they knew that they would be willing to give up of themselves, give up of their bodies. They would do whatever it took, and they knew they were going outside. And this man knew that they were still going after their ex-lover. And there were some women that's still doing that today. There was a whole lot of men that had women that fell in love with them. And this woman stayed there because she was in love with him. She was trying everything that she could to get him to see. And this is what God do with us. Because God knows how much he loves us, and he's given everything to us, but yet we still in love with something else. We've fallen in love with so many things that will never give us what we really desire, never really satisfy us, never really make us whole, never really make us complete. So what are you in love with? And this is about really making us think, so that while we're going forward, we can really put ourselves in position. We take all kinds of things to detox. We take all kinds of things to cause us to lose weight, to put us at positions where we feel delivered, feel free, where we want to be set free. We go to all kind of religious services. We go to all kind of prophetic encounters. We go to all kind of, evangelistic encounters and what have you. We go to all kind of revivals, but we still the same way, because when the benediction is given, what we say, we left at the altar. We go to the altar and we ask the man or the woman of God to pray for us. We ask the prophet to prophesy to us, and we ask them to tell us what the Lord has said, show us what God is showing them about us. And the moment that God shows us, when we walk away, before we walk away, let me put it to you like I said, because we need to stop telling that tale and stop telling that lie. And I'm going to say it, my mom would often say, my grandma would say, stop saying that bald-faced lie that you done left it at the altar, because before you even get to the altar, you already have made up your mind how much you will let go and how much you won't let go, because you're no different than Ananias and Sapphira. And if the man of God would be as Peter did and tell them, before you tell me that lie, God got some people getting ready to walk in. If the Holy Ghost would do as he did in the first century church, and we stop lying to the Holy Ghost because we think we lying to the preacher, we think we lying to the pastor, we think we lying to the prophet, we think we lying to the overseer, the elder. We lying to the bishop, we lying to the apostle, we lying to, the prelate, whatever the man or woman of God is, or whatever position they hold in the church. We lying to the deacon, we lying to the person that laying hand on us praying, because we still in love with something else. We say we done gave up the drug, the whore, we done gave up the prostitute, we done gave up the trick, we done gave up the dope, we done gave up all of the things we do because we want to be with the Lord. We done gave up the other woman, we done gave up the other man, and we a man gave up the other woman, and we a woman. We done stopped having the orgies and all of these things. What are we really loving? Who we really loving? The whole town laughing at us. That's what Teddy say.
Silly.
We say we ain't sleeping with our wife niece. We ain't sleeping with our husband nephew. That don't throw some of y'all off, huh? We ain't sleeping with our wife auntie, our husband uncle. See, that's throwing a lot of folk off, ain't it? Because that's going on in this day and time.
Some people did it. Some people
we ain't sleeping with say it loud.
Some people did it and some people mamas.
I ain't sleeping with your homeboy. I ain't sleeping with your best friend. I ain't sleeping with your best friend on the night of the wedding. I ain't slept with your best friend before you got married, baby. Honey, I wasn't with your boys. They didn't run no train on me. This is what we're saying. So what are we in love with? Yeah, we had a bachelorette party, but that didn't go down like that. I didn't get so drunk that I couldn't remember. I got a work husband. What you mean you got a work husband? I got a work wife. Whoa. You can't have two wives. You can't have two husbands. You can't have two best friends. How is your work partner a better friend than your husband or your wife? How is it that they know more about you than your husband or wife? They know more of what's going on with you, what's bothering you, what's troubling you, because you claim you can't talk to them. In the beginning, you told them everything. Now you feel you can't tell them nothing at all. Well, that's where you find the resolution. You find what can be the conflict resolution to the problems that's going on, because now what you've done, you become too intimate with that other person. And because you become too intimate with that person, now you've gotten close, because intimacy is a manner whereby you learn somebody and you share intimate secrets with them. And that causes you to become emotionally drawn and attached to them. And it causes you to begin to fall in love. And it brings out some things that shouldn't be brought out, and it causes affections to now be raised. Do y'all realize that? Do y'all understand all of those things? Oh, that's right, you do, because we're intelligent beings. And because God have made us highly intelligent beings, we recognize that that's what takes place. But see, this is not the kind of seat at the table we want to talk about, because we want to continue to live in the same places that we live in, because I've been down these roads. I know what happened. I understand what happened. And I recognize when attachments come, they come with weights. And when these weights come, it recreates the sin that all of us have stumbled with. That's why he said, lay aside every weight. And when those weights come, they come because we create some issues that we should not have. The woman with the issue of blood, she went everywhere. And it tells two different stories in the Gospels.
Sure do.
Luke tell the 1:13, Matthew tell the 1:12. Both of them had issues where they kept bleeding. We're bleeding so much. Y'all remember, my wife talked about this a while back one morning as we were dealing with our institute, and everybody wanted to deal with preachers bleeding on everybody, preachers bleeding on everybody. Well, it's not just the preachers bleeding on everybody. We ourselves bleed on people, if you want to use it and call it what it is, because in our relationships, we bleed on so many people so often that we fail to realize that we will not allow ourselves to stop bleeding, because we go to everybody for advice instead of going to the person that we need to go to repair what needs to be repaired. And the person that we need to go to is God himself through Christ, so that God can give us what is needed to direct us where we need to go in our relationship, in order to settle, in order to reconnect, in order to disconnect the things that have caused us the disconnect. Because what happened, we have a loose connection in our relationship, but we go somewhere else for somebody to connect us in areas that we don't need to be connected in. And now when we connect to them, now we ain't short wired, we're rewired with somebody else, while we want to stay wired where we are, and we just want to go through the motions, and we just lay in the bed with each other. We go through the motions with each other. We pretend like we're in love with each other. We pretend we loving each other. We pretend that we love each other. We pretend to fall in love with each other. We don't see nothing different about the other one. We just tell them, oh, baby, you look good. Oh, baby, you fine. Oh, baby, you sexy. Oh, I'm tired of you. When I got with you, you didn't look like that. When I got with you, you didn't have all that weight. When I got with you, you were making yourself up. Oh, no, okay, well, baby, look, I need you to go on and do what you did in the beginning. Baby, what I need you to do, I need you to do these things right here. Okay, you done gained a little weight. Over time, we gonna gain some weight. Do you still love me? Yes, I still love you. I like the way you look. Okay, you put on a little weight. That's fine. You mine. But no, we won't go get somebody that's out there killing themselves to look a certain way, because this is what the world say they're supposed to look like. Y'all talk to me. Mm-hmm. See, we don't want to hear the real reality of what the world really wants you to be like, because you want to look like what the world say you need to look like, and you want to have this fantasy relationship. It is okay. It's all right. But then when it doesn't happen, now you got to recreate, because when they're tired of you, they got 4 or 5 others as well. When you're killing yourself to make the money that needs to be made just to pay them, to give them what they want, now you have nothing, and now you're ready to settle down, but you've been used by a dozen different women or a dozen different men, and now what you got that you want to give to one man ain't worthwhile giving to one man, because it's wore out. That's what my great-grandmother says, already wore out, so why I want it? Everybody done took a ride on it. Everybody done drove down it. Everybody done drove in it. Everybody done rode on it. So what I'm going to do with it? It got too many miles on it. It's like going to a used car lot. When you go to a used car lot, you don't want to buy a car that's got over 100,000 miles on it. You want something that's got anywhere from 30 to 60,000 miles on it, because you know you're going to get some good use out of it. And you want something that had no more than 1 or 2 owners on it. Because if you had a car that you bought at a used car lot that had 3 to 4 owners previously before you got it, you already know that car's not going to last long. If more than 2 people that sat in that driver's seat, you know it's already wore out. So why would I want a vehicle in a person that has had about a dozen plus people that done rode it? Can I be nice with it tonight? We're at the table. So are you still loving your past lover while you want to be in love with your present lover? How can you say you still in love with God so much when you still love so much about the world? So before you start falling in love with God, you might as well decide whether or not you still love everything about the world before you start talking about wanting to live for God. I tell people that all the time. I'm going to be straight up with you. I don't know about any other preacher. I don't know about any other pastor. Because when you decide you're ready to now give your life to Christ, you better make a decision. Because I'm going to tell you now, I told the Lord, I want to have all the fun I want. But for some reason, he chose me early. Now, I had some struggles in the beginning, because I'm like, look, Jesus, I wasn't done. I wasn't finished having the fun I wanted to have. And I understand you about to take my life. That many times I could have died along the way. My body went through a lot of things because I thought I wasn't finished having fun. The fun I thought I wanted to have. Let me help y'all understand that, because I still wanted to love some things that was in the world. I'm being real with you. He said you're going to love one and hate the other. You're going to cleave the one and despise the other. So how can you love two people? How you going to tell me you're going to be in love with me and you still love your ex-boyfriend? You trying to play in two beds and it's messing with your head. And then you want to have 4 or 5. You got a spare. Your spare sometimes go bad because you ain't going to use your spare all the time. The one on the side, they going to get mad because you ain't giving them enough time. And the one on the side going to have somebody on the side because you ain't going to always be there. But the sad part is that they got a whole lot of men and a whole lot of women out there don't mess with nobody because they know you going to be there. But after a while, it bothers them because people asking them, hold up, if they got a man and you ain't got no man, what's wrong with you? If they got a woman, I'm lost, baby. They're trying to figure out why you putting yourself through this. Well, they pay the bills, and if I need any help, they do it. When they got some time, they talk to me, at least once or twice a day. When they get a chance, they text me, and this, that, and the third. They come by every so often. And you satisfied with that? You okay with that? Well, I get to live my life, and I ain't bothered. I ain't got to worry about all of that headache. She got to deal with all that fussing and arguing. I ain't got to deal with that fussing and arguing. When he come over, we have a little meal, and we do our thing, girl, and da-da-da, yada, yada. Man, I ain't got to worry about all that headache, man. He got to worry about that mess over there. He got to deal with all of that. I got my house, she over there with him, and what have you, and da-da-da, yada, yada, and so on and so forth. Hold on. What happens when it comes to where you tired of waking up by yourself? That what Gerald Levert said. They say in my songs, he said, I'm tired of everybody being lovey-dovey. I'm tired of waking up being alone. He said, I want to break up the makeup to my songs. He said, I want to walk in and get married to my songs. That's one of my favorite songs. Damn, I hear that segment. I love it because it makes sense to me. Everybody going home with somebody. He said, years later, 20 years later, I want everybody to be talking about our song. He said, I want to make love to my song. Not nobody else's song, my song. Not Keith Sweat, not Teddy Pendergrass, not Johnny Taylor, none of them, my song. Y'all ain't tired of that? You ain't tired of trying to think about in your head who you got to think about so that you can be at a place to where you ready? You got to think about somebody else to smile at your wife, smile at your husband. You got to get yourself together, get your thoughts together. Who you in love with? What about the person you with made you fall in love with them? You were that mad at the other person when they left you, when you left them. You had that much against them that you mean to tell me you couldn't get rid of them. The memory gonna be there because you were with them. You had some kind of relationship with them. And if you laid down with them, now, are you still laying down with them years later? Why you laying down with who you laying down with now? I know y'all don't want to hear that. Why my wife sitting here being all pretty, like a church girl? I don't know why Bishop saying that. Stop being a church girl. Let's be real. Because see what happened to Solomon. Solomon had to come back and he had to ask God for forgiveness. Or else he wasn't going to make it in. Some of us got to think about, do you really want to make it in? What happened when you standing at the door at 5 o'clock in the morning and she saying, who is it? It's a thin line, ain't it? Red, why you using all these songs to talk to us about who you in love with?
Because sometimes, I look at it and I'm going to give several examples of what I look at. Is a lot of times, it's funny that today at work, let me start there. Today at work, me and my coworkers was having a conversation And that happened to be in one of our conversations because of the fact one of my nurses was reading, because we got a lingo for everything now. Everything has a different term or a different phrase, and it doesn't mean the same thing that it meant whenever we were growing up. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So whenever I listened to the definition of the word, I said, well, why did you marry your husband?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, and I listened to the answers that came out, and I listened to one because she said it took her 15 years before she married her second spouse because she married her first one so young. And I think sometimes whenever we think about the relationships that we get in, sometimes when we get in relationships, some of us were young when we got into those relationships. We was immature in a lot of things. We took a lot of things, we gave a lot of things, we accepted a lot of things, we threw away a lot of things, but a lot of things we just did not detox from. Mm-hmm. Even though we may have taken time away, because a lot of times as women, I know for a fact, even myself, is that whenever I broke up with someone, it took me a long time just to find myself again. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So because it took me a long time, I wasn't interested in dating. I never forget whenever I met my son's kindergarten teacher. She said, you know what, you're really too young to be single. She said, and you have no desire to be with anybody. Your whole life is your son. She said, I need you not to just do that. You need to live. You're young. But sometimes whenever we get involved in things, whenever we're young, it does take a big part of our life. And because of the fact it takes such a big part of our life, we want to put the brakes on to back away to look. But do we necessarily really detox from these situations? Mm-hmm. Because what tends to happen is they'll come up whenever you're starting to really live and you're wondering, why is these things coming up? I know for a fact that I got rid of these things. Or one of the biggest things that I look at is because of the fact I love talking to older women. And whenever I was single, I was always around married women. I don't know why most of my friends were married. I don't know why that is. Either I was always around older women and they would always talk to me or they would always encourage me, which I love that. Because anybody that know me know I love wisdom. I love to be around somebody that's going to impart something in me, that's going to give me something. And one of the biggest things that I look at is that a lot of women that has married a husband and they had a good man. Did you hear what I said? I ain't say no boy and all that stuff. You got some women that have married great men. Mm-hmm. And whenever they married great men, they compare every man after that man.
Right.
Most of the time, most men don't even have a chance in the world because of the fact, one, that man that she was married to before him set the bar high.
That's right.
And because he set it so high, when she look at you, she's always looking for him.
Exactly.
Because why? He treated her so good. And I said that because of the fact we got two different things going on right here. You got somebody that set the bar real high that has now made it hard for you to move on with life. Exactly. Because it does become hard to move on with life. When you've been treated, when they say when you've been treated good, you don't want to be treated like no secondhand mess. So whenever you get ready to try to go back into dating, you're so busy comparing. Mm-hmm. And you know for yourself, you have seen women struggle after they've been married to a good man.
That's right.
And one of the biggest things that I look at is that on the other hand, now you got women that actually struggle. Why? Because we've been in bad relationships. Exactly. That man ain't being compared to the good things that was going on. He's now being compared to all the bad crap that you don't put up with. All the bad talking, all the want to yell, cuss, fuss, want to call you out on your name, want to put you down, want to make you feel like you're empty, nobody, and all types of things. So now you're trying to detox from all of that. You finally got what you want. You got somebody that's treating you like somebody, because you know once you've been treated like some mess, when you pick up something good, you're like, oh, I got something good right here. I done found me a diamond in the rough.
Then you recreate that world again, and that's the bad thing.
Exactly. So One of the biggest things that I look at, and the question is who are you loving? One of the biggest things is that once you recognize that these are issues that you have, and you notice that I said issues because that's what they are. We can be delivered from issues. That's one of the greatest things that I love is because one of the examples that he used on tonight was the woman with the issues of blood. She had issues, which means it was multiple things going on. A lot of us have multiple things going on. We have multiple things going on in our mind. We have multiple things going on physically. We have multiple things that we're speaking about, talking on, and all types of stuff. But at the root of it, because remember, let's go back a couple of conversations back. Mm-hmm. We went to the conversation. Let's get to the root of things.
That's right.
So now when we got to the root of things, did we recognize that, hold up, some of these things are influencing other things. Mm-hmm. Some of these things are bringing up other stuff that I thought was gone now. And we find out, wait a minute, it's really not gone. So I know that I really have to work on this because one, I don't want to keep bringing up something that I know that I left or I left behind. So what is it that I'm continuing to do?
That's right. Because, and the other thing I want to add to that is that it's nothing wrong with loving the person you used to love. The problem is that if you are still in love with them, it's really impossible to fully be in love with the new person. There's nothing wrong with saying that I love them because somewhere in there you did fall in love with them. Somewhere in there you did have love for them. Somewhere in there you were loving them. But if you're no longer in a relationship with them, you cannot allow yourself to still be in love with them while you're now presently in a whole nother relationship with somebody else and say that you are in love with this new person. Let's go here because we live in a world where, we have all kinds of relationships. So there's no different than a woman and a woman, a man and a man that have now saying that they have fallen in love with each other. And both of them have come out of different relationships. And this woman now have fallen in love with a new lady. And she still is in love with the previous woman. And they hadn't been dating for 2 or 3 years, and she have now decided to engage in a relationship with somebody else. And I know somebody gonna get mad, but I'm gonna use the example anyway because now the problem comes is that she's still friends with the previous woman. They still go on little lunch dates and all this other stuff. They don't have all the other things that they were doing together. But she's still in love with this woman, but she now have found a new person that they have now begun to date. They doing everything that a relationship says it's supposed to be, and they have now crossed some lines and all of these other things that go on with a relationship. And this woman, she never told the new woman that she was still in love with the ex-woman. And when the ex-woman finds out that she still is in love with this other woman, now it creates problems. First of all, you entered into the relationship with deception. You entered the relationship deceiving this woman that she was the only one, that she had your whole heart, that you was the only person that was going to be there, that it was all about you and her. And now she done found out because now y'all all hugged up and you see that she's getting the same attention that you were giving her. And it's in the same manner that you gave her. And she can tell by the look in your eyes, when you look at her, you looking at her the same way that you look at her. In other words, let me put it to you like this here. The gaze that you have in this ex-woman's eyes is the same gaze you have in this new woman's eyes. You don't think a woman can tell when a man has a heart for another woman or a woman have a heart for another man, especially if they have been in some kind of relationship or even if they had something that they wanted but they never crossed lines? You can tell when somebody is in love with somebody. You can tell when somebody really have deep emotional feelings, but they never cross lines. You can tell when best friends wanted to fall in love or had fallen in love, but they never kissed, they never hugged, they never laid down in the bed together. But you can tell that their hearts were intertwined because they were just that close, but they decided that they knew that they shouldn't cross their lines, but they were in love with each other. And if opportunity ever presented itself, it was there. You can see it. But you're in love with somebody because that person has your heart. But you never allowed yourself to now remove those feelings out of the way because you thought that it was okay. It was nothing wrong. It was innocent love. Some of you still in love with your childhood friends because it was just playground love and it was puppy love, as the old folk would call it. And you just feel there's nothing wrong with it. And years later, it's causing problems. Because your heart is there. And now your husband done died, so now you don't want to look for your playground love. You don't want to look for your high school sweetheart. You don't want to look for your junior high sweetheart. You don't want to look for your kindergarten sweetheart. Found out they ain't with nobody, you ain't with nobody, and they still love you, and the love is still there. They still want to be bothered. They was hoping that you would finally say something to them, and they was afraid to say something when y'all was in the 4th grade, y'all was in the 6th grade, y'all was in the 8th grade. They didn't know how you would respond. They wasn't sure if you would like them or not. And they had all these feelings then bottled inside. And you've been in love with them all of this time while you was in a whole marriage for 30 years until your husband or wife died, or till your husband and you divorced. But then you had got into another marriage that for some reason didn't pan out, didn't work out. And you had all of these lovers. Too many lovers creates all kinds of issues. So who are you really in love with? Shouldn't be but two people you're in love with, because see, God ain't gonna get in your way. Because you can be in love with God and be in love with your wife or your husband, and it won't cause no problems. The only way it causes problems is if the other party don't want a relationship with God. That's the only time I've ever seen somebody have a problem, when a man is in love with God and a woman is in love with God. And that is because they don't want to turn their life around and live for God in no kind of way. That's the only time I've seen where somebody had a problem, when the person is in love with God, because they don't want to change. They don't want to stop. They love what they're doing, and they don't care if they're going to hell or not. They just want to love what they love and do what they do and enjoy how they're doing it. And it is what it is. But then I've also seen people had no problem with their wife or their husband loving God. As long as you don't bother me doing what I'm doing, I ain't going to bother you doing what you're doing. You love God till the day you die. But I've seen many folk have issues with people that love Christ. And those people that have issues with it is they know that God had called them to do something, and they know God is calling them out, and they're afraid that they're going to get found out, because what they're doing is really causing issues for the person that they're in love with. And they know that that person with that relationship with Christ, the Lord going to show them. But that person that got the relationship with Christ is sleeping better at night, because they ain't got to really worry about having headaches, blood pressure going up, ulcers, having stress, and all that other stuff. They sleep good, because now they trying to figure out, well, what, you ain't worried about me no more. What you going? You with the preacher? You with the deacon? You with somebody in the church? No, they with the Lord. They at peace. They at rest, because He gave them rest now. Now, whatever you doing, God gonna deal with you. And that's the problem that most people have, is because that person now have learned how to live with the Lord so well, and Christ have given them peace in what's going on, that that person has no peace at all, and either they're gonna come out or they're going to leave out. Two ways they're going to leave out. They're going to leave out the door, or they're going to do like my son posted on Facebook with that little crazy thing that he posted on Facebook. You know, you kill him, we come get him.
Oh.
You stab him, we grab him. So who you loving? Who do you really want to love? Do you really want to love the person that you're with? Then you got to finally get rid of your old lover. You got to be like the song says, you got to be a choosy lover, because God is a choosy lover. It ain't about jealousy. It's about giving all of your love to the person that you with. Because if that person is giving you all of their love, then is it not fair for you to give all your love to them? If that person have truly given you all of their heart, is it not fair for you to give them all of your heart? How can you share your heart with all of those folk? And if you're thinking about the little four-wall chamber, ain't got but four walls in there. They ain't that big. So how many people you done fit in all four chambers? And the chambers ain't gonna have no room for blood if you done stuck them in there. You only have two hemispheres to your brain. And when you split that into four, how many people you gonna really fit in there? You barely use 10% of the frontal lobe of your brain. The rest of your brain really not active. You can check that out if you want as well. You can do the research. We use only about 10 to 20% of the frontal lobe of our brain. So who you loving? Who are you in love with? Your previous love or your present love? Who's getting more of your time? When you figure that out, then you can really be free to love the person that you're supposed to be loving. If you're married, getting ready to be married, planning on being married, want to be married, make sure you're only loving one apart from God. Have a great night. Good evening, Tony.